Of course, now that I've posted that video about how the NICU sabotaged my breastfeeding relationship with my son, I realized that I did not share what I consider to be the most important part of the entire saga as it relates to breastfeeding. When I woke up from my emergency C-section and began pumping, everyone that I encountered remarked upon what an excellent milk supply I had. And I pumped diligently and religiously around the clock in order to provide my baby with breast milk, since it was really the only thing that I could do other than holding him to initiate some kind of bond. Over the course of the 12 weeks that he was in the NICU, my milk supply was threatened by mastitis, multiple instances of clogged duct, and over the course of this period, I watched the supply dwindle and began to worry, how do I increase my milk supply? Even though I'm pumping, at some point I was pumping every 2 hours instead of 3 and drinking every supplement and tea that would increase supply and consuming brewer's yeast and everything to get my supply up. I was watching it dwindle, and I knew that the reason my supply was going down is because I did not have access to my son except for in brief periods during the day and watching him on a screen on my phone, which I would do around the clock. The key to a healthy breast milk supply is nipple stimulation and proximity to your baby. You need to be close to the baby. You need nipple stimulation on a very regular basis. And with a newborn, that's anywhere from an hour and a half to 3 hours around the clock. So when I would go to the NICU, especially in the beginning, I would only have an hour or so to be with him. And by the end of his stay there, I was spending 6-hour or more stretches at his bedside, holding him, holding my pee in, because once you put the baby back, you don't get to take him back out. And so I say all this because everything that I mentioned in my previous video can be boiled down to they did not care for how long I was separated from my son. They did not care at all. They told me that explicitly. They told me it was selfish for me to want him to come home. My baby could have come home at 36 weeks. He met every milestone for weight, heart health, lung health, and the only milestone that he had not yet completed was being able to eat independently from a bottle. The hospital staff insisted that my son take full bottles of fortified milk and held him hostage because he could not stand the taste of the formula fortification. I know that this is the reason he couldn't drink the milk, because at a certain point, the better we got at breastfeeding, the less he would take bottles. And at a certain point, he started choking every time he took bottles. My husband asked them, will you just give us a week off of the fortification? And the first bottle that he took, that was just pure milk with no formula in it, he guzzled it down, finished the entire bottle. Then that entire week, he finished pretty much every bottle. And whenever I would go in to breastfeed, he would latch and stay latched for 15, 20, 30 minutes. Because I was pumping all the time, I knew what it felt like for my breasts to be empty, and I could tell that he was transferring milk. I mean, they even used a stethoscope to make sure like they could hear him swallowing the milk. So there should have been no question that he was transferring milk. However, there was questions for them. They genuinely would not believe that he was getting enough milk unless they could weigh him with scales that were broken and literally never represented a full feed. And I honestly believe that was intentional. They kept him in the NICU until he was 42 weeks old. And it was just so unnecessary. It was so unnecessary. And they watched me weeping and losing my mind. My husband begging for details as to what they expected if he was on a normal timeline for feeding and growing, and just insisting. They would insist over and over that it's Harlan's world, we're just living in it, and he just has to eat, and we can't make him do it, and it's just going to take however long it takes. The reason it took so long is because he hated the taste of formula, And when he breastfed or took bottles of pure milk, he had no problem eating at all. So where did the mother-baby dyad figure into the calculus? When you consider maybe if he doesn't have the formula, he's not going to get all of the vitamins and nutrients that he would get from breast milk alone. But he will be home with his family. He will be growing. He will be attached. That's what I didn't say in my first video, and it's because I was breastfeeding and extremely emotionally triggered by everything that I was processing now that my baby's asleep and I have a little bit more time to think about it. That is what I needed to say. The NICU really did not give a shit if my baby ever came home. They did not give a shit if he ever drank milk, if he stayed on formula forever. They actually told me there would never be a time when I would be allowed, their words, to breastfeed more than one time per day. They told me that they had never met a baby in the NICU that had a greater success with breast than with bottle. The day that my son came home, he has been breastfed ever since. And we went to his pediatrician and they were like, wow, he's gaining weight so well. You don't need to do the formula anymore. They were like, the formula is giving him eczema and bloody stool. He has a cow's milk protein allergy. The formula is made of cow's milk. You don't need to do that anymore. So that's my point. The NICU they would have kept him in there forever just so that he would drink formula. And the question for me is why? Because other NICUs don't operate like that. Other NICUs don't make formula the be-all, end-all of if a baby can go home. Other NICUs worldwide would have found more ways to accommodate breastfeeding and to preserve that breastfeeding relationship, because you know what? It's not just about the 12 weeks that he was in the NICU. He's going to be nursing for at least a year and probably into toddlerhood. It is absurd and disgusting and just inhumane beyond belief. The short-sightedness of not caring at all if he was successful in nursing. If I was successful in breastfeeding him, I mean, my recovery from the C-section, my recovery from the pregnancy itself, bouncing back, losing weight, not falling into postpartum depression, not succumbing to absolute alienation and isolation in early motherhood, relies upon the dyad relationship of breastfeeding, of mother and child being completely in sync because of this back and forth communication between our bodies. That is not medicine. That is not ethical. And that's all I wanted to say.